So, Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou 2 at UFC 260. Awesome fight. Awesome, fucking awesome fight. Sorry for swearing so early in the, so early into the podcast. So, where do I start? So, I'll first of all say and happily say and unashamedly say, the fight did go the way that I thought it would go because of Francis Ngannou striking. Such a big gun. Just looking at him, how he's training with his sparring partners back at his gym. His kicks, his striking, his hooks, his left hooks. Just dangerous. Very dangerous. It would be very, very unfortunate to be on the receiving end of any of those attacks. So it was an awesome fight. Of course, these two have fought before at UFC 220 back in 2018. And the fight lasted basically the whole half an hour, the whole 5 rounds of the fight. But this time around, Francis is going to change things, and the fight just lasted about let's say a round and a half, just a whole of the first round, just almost half of the second round. So it was really good. The first round, Ngannou was winning. I see he was landing some really heavy shots. Getting some good takedowns in there, and his head kicks, for such a big guy and so much size, his head kicks were really, really awesome, and still delivering, significant damage to his opponent Stipe. And I noticed that was slightly different from his last fight at UFC 220, and this was confirmed by one of the commentators by Joe Rogan. This time around, was much more patient and much more calculating with his attack game. I call it his attack game. His stance, how he was going about attacking his opponent, just wearing them down. And in the second round, it was a left hook and then a right hook that just dropped his opponent dropped Stipe on the ground. And he it was that right hook towards the end of the fight before he finished it. That's really did it, and he just went in for the kill and just finished Stipe off. So really, really good fight. The fight went the way I said it would, and the MMA community came out and they're applauding Ngannou and congratulating him on his win. Really awesome, really impressive. And when you're watching it, when I was watching it, I was just like really like in awe. I mean, I kind of course, when you see fighters past fights, unless of course common sense would suggest that you're going to change things depending on whatever opponent you're going to be fighting, because you want to win, so you're going to look at their opponent's fighting style and stance. They're going to change things, but looking at their past fights, for me anyway, I kind of anticipate and I kind of expect them to fight in that same way. At least it will be similar. It will not be too different, because every fighter naturally, because of how they are. We're not machines. We're human beings, but every fighter naturally has their own particular way of how they fight. It's not necessarily good or bad. Okay, it may for some fighters it may be bad, and some other fighters may be really good. But no two fighters are going to fight in the exact same way. Each fighter is going to be different. So that was a really, really, really awesome fight, and it was awesome. So he won by a KO, and his just adding to his record of 18 matches, which will now make it 19 matches, 16 wins, and just a mere 3 losses. So this is really good. And I actually looked at Ngannou's past, and I never knew this, but he's actually he kind of made this journey from, it's like a rags to riches story. So like he kind of made this journey from being a nobody in Cameroon, a country in West Africa. He was, I think, was he an orphan there? No, he wasn't an orphan. But he left Cameroon and travelled to Morocco, and then from Morocco, excuse me, from Morocco he moved to France, and then from France somehow just managed to get to the US and get into the UFC. So, but of course, along the way he suffered a lot, and in France, in Paris, that he was homeless. So really, he has worked, had to pull himself up by his bootstraps, as they say, to get himself to where he is today. So, really impressive, and a lot of people, even myself, were very proud of him and proud for his win last night. And of course, credit to Stipe for being, as Joe Rogan said in one of his latest Instagram posts, credit to Stipe for being a class act in all of this, because some fighters, of course, wouldn't have taken too kindly to losing like this, at least losing a championship title belt in this manner. But credit to him for handling the whole situation well. I mean, I saw when they were announcing the winner in that in the ring that once the fight was over, when they're announcing the winner, you know, naturally you know who's won the fight. Even both fighters know who's won, unless of course something happens. Maybe one of the judges just fucks things up and they don't do their job properly and they misjudge the whole contest, whereby even a novice who has never seen who has never followed the sport of MMA before, or never seen a fight before in their life, never been in a fight before in their life, if they see it, they can, of course, even they themselves can tell who the winner is, you know. But no, credit to him, he handled the whole thing well. No trash talking, no shit talking, nothing like that. So next up was Vincent Luque versus Tyron Woodley, the men's welterweight division. Now, in this fight, I have to say that when I saw this, my immediate response was, okay, this fight was a horrible fight, and Tyron Woodley, his performance was just absolutely terrible. But then after kind of talking about it to Charlie is someone who I speak to about this a lot on a regular basis, but virtually every single day. After speaking to him about it, he said, well, no, it's actually a good fight, you know, because I saw Dana White's reactions at the post-press conference after the fight, and I was surprised by his comments, I was surprised by Charlie's comments, because both sides and other people as well. I was thinking, well, hold on, did these people see the same fight that I saw? Because I thought that fight was actually absolutely horrible for Tyron, but then I went back and I watched it a lot more closely. And actually, Tyron Woodley started the fight really well, quite aggressively. He got the clinches in. His grappling and wrestling was on point. Was really, really good striking, everything. But there was just one point whereby his opponent set a trap, and he fell into that trap, and it was just so cleverly done. He just landed a clean. What was it? No, he landed. It's a clean. Is it left or right hook? I can't remember. I should remember, but even in my notes I'm not corrected. But he just landed a single shot to Woodley's chin, to his jaw. And I can see that if you hit your opponent there, that's also one place you can knock your opponent out completely. But he landed a shot there, and it drops it drops Woodley, and that did it for Woodley, because from there things just start going downhill. I noticed that even at one point he seemed dazed. He somehow, the fight moved from one side of the octagon to the other side. I remember him at one point just standing on his legs, just, I'd say, he'd just been woken up from a really deep sleep. And yeah, it was just one of those situations whereby you know, you think it's going well, you think you got it in the bag, and then out of nowhere, boom, you know, your opponent can't just changes things completely, and you know, you're given a rude awakening that, you know, this is not going to go the way you had hoped or the way you had anticipated. And yeah, you know, Luque won via submission by a Barabo choke. And another question that people are asking now, Dana White included, though he didn't really make it clear in the press conference, he was very vague, as he's notorious for being so, especially with Khabib. And in fact, a lot of people close to Khabib were close to Khabib, you know, from the AKA gym in California. They everybody's being basically tight-lipped about whether he was coming back to the sport or not, coming out of retirement, and even if it was just for one last fight to bring his record of 29-0 up to 13-0. You know, even if they knew anything, they were being really, really tight-lipped about it. But a lot of people are now speculating that Tyron Woodley probably will be released from the UFC, because this will now be his fourth loss out of a losing streak. Because before this, he had three fights that he lost. But there were three. He lost 3 fights, and you know, Dana White commented on the fact that this guy is now 38, going on 39 years old. There's a good chance that he will not be. Well, he didn't say anything like that, but you know, of course, it's nothing new. Although you do have the rare exceptions such as Glover Teixeira, who is about 41, 42. But in the MMA world, in the sports world, once you start to hit your late 30s, and maybe if you're lucky enough, you're still competing into your early 40s. That is the time that many people are advised, or it's considered it's the time that the athlete should retire and hang up their boots and whatever, because you're just not the young spring chicken you were back in your early 20s, your early to mid to late 20s, early 30s. At that point, your recovery is not going to be what it used to be. And I saw that in the if you agree with me, I saw that in the Alistair Overeem fight that he fought when he fought against Alexander Volkov. His recovery, just after that one single shot from Volkov, it just, even for Overeem in that fight, things just started going down. He couldn't recover, and it just ended up with him trying to defend himself, and he wasn't really attacking his opponent. It really just sucked from that point. Yeah, so Woodley has had four losses. The fourth, of course, will be against Luque. So the other losses he's had has been Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns, and Kamaru Usman. So now it's 4 losses. So I think, of course, I can safely say that in the sport, one loss, let's say 2 losses, but let's say one loss can be one loss too many. Of course, if you are a big name like, say, Conor McGregor, if you're a big name like, say, Conor McGregor, I think you might get away with that because you're bringing so many pay-per-views for the organization. That they know that you're their golden boy, like Conor McGregor. I've been told he's Dana White's golden boy, so he can get away with something like this. So if he's had one loss, then he won't be dismissed from the organization just like that. For Tyron Woodley, Charlie asked me about this, whether he's going to be cut from the UFC, and I said I haven't actually had a chance to look into this, and now I'm looking at the guy's record. 4 losses, that doesn't look good. That doesn't look good at all. And for his age and for his current fighting record, this losing streak, I think Dana White probably is going to say, sorry kid, but I think not kid, but sorry friend, but I think your time's up. It's time to call it quits. At least to call it quits with the UFC. And if he does quit from the UFC, if he quits from the UFC, or if Dana White releases him from the UFC, where will he go? Because I have to say, despite what I've just said about being as far as sports is concerned, when you get to a certain age, even though in life in general, being around 40, 41 isn't necessarily considered old, but in sport it is considered old. If he leaves the UFC, will he retire? As in, will he be done with the sport completely for good? Or what else could he do? Where else will he go? Will he go to Bellator? Will he go to One Championship? Will he go to PFL? He's still. When you look at other fighters like Glover Teixeira, I think I look at them and then I look at Tyron Woodley, and I think, okay, maybe the UFC may not want you, but potentially there's still hope for you elsewhere. So it'll be interesting to see what he does and see what happens anyway, because at the press conference, Dana White didn't necessarily say word for word, I think it's time for him to go. I mean, he didn't say it like he said it with Yoel Romero. He didn't say it clearly and just bluntly. He didn't say that this person has this many losses, blah, 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 blah. It's time for him to go. We don't really need you or want you anymore. And Yoel Romero, I think, moved over to Bellator. I think if that's wrong, because it's something I like to fact check things exactly before I come and make my podcast, please correct me in the comment section below. I know some people have actually started doing that, and I'm grateful. I will happily take correction. If I'm wrong about something, I'll happily take it humbly. I'll not argue with you. If the facts are what they are, I will correct myself, and no problem, no argument for me. That's fine. So after that, Sean O'Malley versus Thomas Almeida in the men's bantamweight division. And as I got his record here. No, I don't. But anyway, after this, I was gonna say, I can't remember the event it was. Of course, it was a UFC event, but of course the latest on Sean O'Malley before this fight was, I think, a fight he had. I can't even remember the opponent's name. But Ben Askren called him out on it and said that called him like a chicken or a coward or just a weakling for being carried out on a stretcher. So but that was the event. I think that was Sean O'Malley's latest fight before this fight here at UFC 260. So his performance was really impressive. Was really good. He moved well. He avoided being hit quite a lot. There was that brutal head kick that he delivered to Almeida, which was actually hit the shin of O'Malley's leg, going straight to Almeida's chin. So that's I have to say that I've not been dealt a leg kick before. The exception being my legs in the past in amateur fights, but I've not been dealt a leg kick to my head, to my forehead, mouth, or anywhere near the upper part of the body. So I have to say I don't know what it feels like, but I can, from what the fights that I've seen, I've heard what those leg kicks are like and the sort of damage they do to the opponent's body. To opponents such as Anderson Silva, where his leg was broken by what's his name, Chris Weidman or something like that. So I can hear what what they feel like, but not necessarily. I have heard what they felt like, the sort of damage they do, but unfortunately, I say unfortunately, but I'm yet to experience what they feel like. As was it DC Cormier, was it Daniel Cormier or Joe Rogan, one of the cage side commentators? They said that it's a miracle that Almeida will still manage to stand up right and straight after O'Malley's shin touched his chin. So he was still able to stand afterwards, and after the replay showed me that was actually the shin of O'Malley's leg that touched Almeida's chin. If I'm pronouncing it correctly. And I think O'Malley's only slight mistake, but I think he managed to correct it just by defending himself when he was on the ground with his some footwork with his legs. I think he tried to execute a flying knee, but he failed and lost his balance, and that was like in the second round. But yeah, defending himself well. But overall, I'm impressed with his performance, as Charlie said before I went to look at the replay of the whole fight. Yeah, it was really good. And in the post interview, the post press interview, he was saying that for the past 8 months since his last fight, whereby he hurt his ankle, he had been getting memes and jokes and phone calls, text messages, just people making fun of his ankle, just asking, does his ankle still hurt? And stuff like that. But I think this fight has shut the naysayers up, and well done. So he won by a KO. So there was the other fight. I think I missed it somewhere. This was now the women's flyweight division. God, and I hate this. I hate when this shit happens. There's the reason why I downloaded the UFC Fight Pass, and for some reason the UFC never ever upload the fights on the main card up until about maybe 2 or 3 days. Which maybe from a business standpoint they probably won't do that, because they want to make sure that the fight probably becomes as most irrelevant as possible before the next fight. So by the time you've watched it, they've probably made as much money as possible before they can release it to whoever or onto whatever platform they wish. But this was for the women's flyweight division. Miranda Maverick versus Gillian Roberts. I couldn't see it, and I'm not sure. So I can't really confirm properly in this podcast who was that one. Now, Jamie Mullarkey versus Karma Worthy. Now, initially I thought that Jamie Mullarkey was basically a fresh face in the UFC, but no, he's actually had two other previous fights, but those two previous fights he's actually lost. So this will make it his third fight. Get my computer up here. His third fight, an Australian guy. just on my tablet. Yeah, an Australian guy who has had. Can I find this motion? Yeah, an Australian guy who has had in the UFC, I think so far, is it 3 fights? Well, so far he said that his record is 13 wins and 4 losses. So altogether it's about 17 fights altogether, and this should make it the 18th fight. I've just not got the records up here in front of me, guys, but I know that since he's joined the UFC, what I really should have meant to say instead of rambling on like someone who keeps losing his train of thought. Since joining the Ultimate Fighting Championship, he has had about just losses. He hasn't won a single fight, but he won this fight against Karma Worthy, and so this hopefully should put him in the good books of the UFC. So overall, it was a good fight. The fight, he was that good that he went in there and just took care of things in less than a minute in the first round. So I made that point, and fights like that usually they do amazing, because for me it kind of suggests that one of the fighters there just wants to win so badly that they'll the way was it Corey Sanhagen fought at UFC Vegas 18 against Frank Edgar with that flying knee. Just like that, the match was over. Jorge Masvidal versus Ben Askren. I can't remember the UFC event that it was, but just in the first 10, 15, 20 seconds, he took out Ben Askren with that was it a knee, a flying knee, and just knocked Ben Askren out. That was it. But fights like that for me suggest that one of those fighters is so determined to win. They don't care really about how do I say this? Showing off how good they are with their stand up, how good they are with their ground game. They just want to win, and they just go out there and get a knockout in there, whether it's by a TKO or KO, quickly, just in the first round, within the first minute of the first round. So, and this fight, yeah, I mean, what else can I say? He threw a left-hand strike that dropped his opponent, and yeah, he won by KO within 46 seconds of the first round. So yeah, and again, this will be his first UFC win. So hopefully, just looking forward to seeing more good things from this guy. So, have I covered all the fights? Stipe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Well, okay, fine. For the main card, I've covered up the fights for the main card, guys. Sorry, I don't want to ramble on too much for this podcast, so I've got a habit of focusing mainly on the main card. And admittedly, there are some other fights on the preliminary card on the second half of the card that don't interest me that much. They're just not that exciting. Of course, if I was talking to somebody else, yeah, fine, I'll talk about it, and I will talk about it all day, because I still have a lot to learn about the sport. So yeah, people have been reacting about Ngannou's win against Stipe. Yeah, so as I said before at the beginning of the episode, people have been congratulating him. Chael Sonnen said that he called it. I called it as well, because looking at Ngannou's previous fights, not just necessarily the one he had at UFC 220 against Stipe, just watching his fighting style, his striking capability, his shots, his hooks, his kicks, the amount of power behind any attack that he dishes out, of course, is going to be very deadly upon his opponent. And his opponent, whoever you are, you really don't want to be on the receiving end of such an attack. So, question is John Jones still going to be going up against Francis Ngannou head to head at UFC 260? So, a lot of people are doubting that he will. I think, although there's new videos coming out from all the all the sports and the MMA YouTube channels and other platforms like MMA Focus, BT Sports, MMA Worlds, MMA News, etc., etc. And hopefully hopefully this podcast one day, when I get up there to that level, I think I'd say yes. Although John Jones is saying that he still wants more money for the fight, because he believes that he's a big. Okay, understandably, yeah, I agree. He's a big name. Francis Ngannou now, I mean, the sort of win he had over Stipe, they're both big names in the sport now. Especially, of course, more so John Jones. So he's asking for more money for the fights, for a bigger cut of the pay-per-views. If he should find, John Jones did make. I mentioned this in one of my previous podcasts, that John Jones did put out a tweet saying that it would be nice to work for the UFC, blah 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 blah, this and that. If they'll pay me more money, basically that's what it was about. And I think that the tweet was basically hinting that if he wasn't paid more money, he would be leaving the organization. He'd be quitting basically. But as some people have pointed out to me before, that many fighters have said this before, they're gonna quit if they don't get paid more. It's almost like the retirement game thing that Conor McGregor likes to play, that he's retiring, and then a few months later, he's shouting and making so much noise about how he wants to fight. So in this case, I'd say yeah, it could happen. Of course, I can see Francis Ngannou saying, yeah, fine, let's do that, if that's what he wants. But I think the issue will come from the side of John Jones, not just due to the salary, but there's been the issue of, okay, I'm going to be sound like a broken record here, because it's something that people have heard from virtually all corners of the sport of MMA. PEDs, the performance enhancing substances, performance enhancing drugs, banned substances which have been banned by USADA, those sort of things. There have been situations whereby occasions, and this is an example, DC was supposed to fight him at one particular point. Is it 2016 or 17 or 18? I can't remember the particular event. But just at the last minute, at the last seconds, Dana went to meet up with DC Cormier. DC, and we just say DC because I'm getting so tongue twisted and tongue tied when speaking and saying complicated names. And just at the last minute, in the locker room or backstage, away from the main area of the arena, Dana White gave DC the bad news, and DC was clearly pissed, really, really angry. And it's something that John Jones is notorious for when it comes to banned substances, and him just not just banned substances, but also other issues that happen outside of fighting. The car crash we had in 2015 or so, 2015 or 14, and I think he had a head-on collision with another car that's being driven by a pregnant girl. She broke her arm, and he fled the scene, only to return back to the car to pick some things, to just collect some things, while the police were away, and then he left again. Either way, the police didn't see him. But what I'm saying is that where he is concerned, I think I can safely say that there's always been an issue. There's always been some sort of problem. There's always been some sort of issue, and not just PEDs, not just the issues of crime happening outside the fight. And this will not necessarily be an issue, but something I've heard from the top coach, aka Harvey Mendez. He was doing a brief episode with one of the AKA teammates who naturally runs a branch of the AKA gym over in Thailand, Mike Swick, who runs his own podcast. Check it out. Really good podcast. He was saying to Mike Swick that one of the things about John Jones, that if he does see that it's going to be an opponent that he knows he's not going to win, or he's not going to be able to defeat, even if it means pulling out the fight at the last minute, he will do that. Mendes told a brief story about there was one particular fight that I think there was one particular fighter, was it Colby Covington or someone like that, who was supposed to fight John Jones, And what happened is that particular fighter couldn't participate in the competition any longer for some reason. It wasn't disclosed. And then Chael Sonnen stepped in to replace that fighter. And then, knowing how good Chael Sonnen is with wrestling, and of course, if you're good at wrestling and grappling, your ground game will be very good. Excuse me. Your ground game will be very good. John Jones pulled out just right there and then at the last minute. So I have to say that potentially I can see Francis Ngannou saying yes to this fight, but I think the issues will come from John Jones. I mean, Francis Ngannou, I could see him saying yes. He could also say no. Because every fight will have their own reason for not wanting to fight another opponent, whether it's because they don't believe they'll beat their opponent, or because they don't believe that it will do anything for them, to at least push them up towards the top of the rankings of their particular weight division. They don't believe they're going to get a decent payout, a decent salary for their fight, which I can understand. And I've said this before, in the world of mixed martial arts sports, whatever organization you're fighting for, even if it's Bellator, and I say Bellator because I'm always hearing good, nice things at Bellator, even from the way they pay their fighters to how they run their events. Even in the venues when you go, their fighters have said that it feels like a much more family-based atmosphere, and everyone there is friendly in comparison to the UFC, where it's strictly business when you're in there. But the point I'm trying to make basically is that in mixed martial arts, athletes, unfortunately, nobody cares about them. I've seen that. Nobody cares about you at all. So, unfortunately, if you want to succeed and to do well and to earn as much money as possible, because certain things you have to think about when you retire from the sport is your health. And that's something that, especially if you live in a country like the United States, your health, of course, you have to pay for personally from your own money, from your own pocket. And so yeah, I can understand when fighters say no, they're not going to take this fight because the other fighter is someone who I know I can't beat, or they're not a well-known person, so it doesn't do much for them in terms of, even if they beat them, they're not going to earn that much money, because people may not tune in to watch the fight, as many people as much as possible, so the pay-per-views may not be as high as they would like it to be. And in terms of rankings, they may not, they may not be boosted up the rankings as high as I would like. So I do that. From that aspect, I don't know if many people out there listening or watching this will disagree with me, but that is my take on it. So yeah, but let's see how that goes. Now Tyron Woodley, I think I've talked about that enough. So something else I wanted to talk about was there was a mistake I made in the my last podcast, my last episode, Michael Chandler versus Charles Oliveira. And I said that I think I may have played down Michael Chandler's fighting capability, and he is. I've seen him fight before. He is, as they say, he's a very ferocious fighter, a beast, a monster. As one of my subscribers told me, he's a really, really ferocious fighter. So, when they said that, I went back to look at some of his other fights, and I quickly understood what they meant. So I did say that if he was to go head to head with Charles Oliveira, well, I'd say if that fight's going to happen, unless if one of them gets COVID-19, or if for some reason something bad happens that the venue has to close, or anything can happen. But as far as we know, that fight is definitely going to be taking place. I think I'll say it's going to be close, and if it does go one way, will I say Michael Chandler? Because if I say Michael Chandler is going to win this fight, then someone else watching this video, listening to this podcast, will come back and say, "You don't know what you're talking about." No, Charles Oliveira is, if he's not a beast, he's a something else that sounds good, that kind of like adds to the positive side of his fighting capability. So I'll say the fight's gonna be close, but I do know that Michael Chandler is, from what I've seen from his past fights, has besides being a very likable guy, sounds very, very intelligent, sound, intellectual gentleman. I like him. I like him a lot. He's one of those unique fighters that is very different from the rest. He's very ferocious and very dangerous fighter. And his punches are really, really heavy and serious. I'll say it's going to be close. That's the best I can. That's the best way I can put it without upsetting anyone else. But that's my opinion. I'd like to say that one of them will win, but the fight day will come, fight night will come and go, and then we'll see that actually, the opposite was the case. Or I could say that Charles Oliveira will win, stick to my gun, and say no, he's got the upper hand here. But fight night will come and go, and then we'll see that no, Michael Chandler actually proved me wrong, proved everybody else wrong. So I'll say that for me, it will be close. So let's wait and see what happens. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Bad habit, gotta kick it, gotta stop it. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did enjoy this podcast, please don't forget to leave a like and don't forget to subscribe. I'm currently at 76 subscribers. So I'm hoping to get to 100 by. I was hoping to get to 100 by the end of this month, but I'm still a really small, tiny channel, tiny podcast. So probably I shouldn't hold my breath or set my sights too high. So just keep going and pushing and see where this goes, see where this takes me. I'm surprised that I'm getting subscribers or even views at all of my content. So before I even started podcasting about MMA, before I even started podcasting about anything at all, I didn't think anybody would be listening to my content, but people are. So let's see. For myself, let me see where it goes. If you did enjoy my content, my video, once again, please don't forget to leave a like, hit subscribe. You can also listen to my podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, soon be on Apple. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. My name is Ojiako1 on Instagram, Ojiako on Twitter, and Ojiako on Facebook. Thanks again, guys.